background exactly as it was.
There you go. Back with the man, the myth, the legend, Hugo Chavez. No, not Chavez, Hugo Eccles. Welcome back, Hugo. You've been bouncing around a little
I
bit,
have.
and I've changed my venue here. Last time I was in the home office. Now I'm in my office fighting the rain and the floods in New Orleans, and so got a little better space to do this. I prefer to do it here.
I tried to make my setup as similar as last time. I think I may even be wearing the same T-shirt, so in case you want to splice the two together.
Hopefully washed.
Except maybe my hair or beard
Yeah.
will change or something.
There you go.
Yeah.
This is wealthcurated.com. This is our full auto podcast. We could not be more pleased to have Hugo back. Hugo is an industrial design maven of sorts, got a pedigree from the Royal Academy, where they apparently also teach him voice, right? You learn to speak that way at the...
I know, Royal College of Art. Not the Royal
College of
Royal
Art.
Academy is more painting and acting,
Yes.
I think. But yeah, no,
True.
Royal College of Art.
True.
But it's okay. I'll take
apparently
either.
they teach you to speak there that way as well, right? You're learning. It's coming along. Well done.
Yeah. I'm actually from Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Paris, Texas.
Yeah.
You've been bouncing around a little bit. I assume you're doing projects and consulting and stuff.
Since we last spoke, yeah, bouncing around. Yeah, I do. I mean, I continue doing. I mean, obviously I'm a consultant by trade, so I continue to consult. I mean, but part of the building is, a lot of the projects are with brands rather than private clients. So, marquee brands. So, yeah, there's a sort of level of consulting in that. And I guess, they come to me for my opinion,
sure,
in one way or another. But yeah, we've been doing, but also actually consult to some. I work with some other consultants that also consult. So, it's just a whole ecosystem. Yeah. But so always conversations going on.
Can you tell us where you've been, or is that all hush hush?
Well, I can tell you where I've been. I'm not sure I could. I mean, I went on vacation to Vancouver.
Okay.
Because that's where my wife is from, and where my in-laws live. But I may or may not have had some conversations while I was there.
Right. With a certain company that may or may not be there.
Exactly. Yeah. People are like Googling now.
That's right. Right. Yeah. I love Vancouver. I've spent a lot of time in Whistler. I love flying into Vancouver, staying on the bay. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I spent a bit of time in Vancouver, and then my parents-in-law live in Gibson on the Sunshine Coast, so a bit of both. But actually, we were very lucky. Last week there was a bit of a heat wave, so it was beautiful and sunny and warm, and I don't think it's like that this week. So it's gone back to normal.
It can change quick there for sure.
Yeah. So I was saying before we started recording, I remember watching your podcast with Paul D'Orleans and admiring. Yeah. I'm assuming that's a Bell Eliminator in the background. Is it?
Yes.
Sort of chrome. Yeah.
Yes. That's sweet.
And then I was a little disappointed that we didn't do the last one from your office, and then I wouldn't have an excuse to do this.
Right.
To show you this.
Oh, nice.
It's actually not a motorcycle helmet. It's you can see you can see the crew behind the scenes.
It's so cool.
But it's pretty cool. It's actually a snowboarding helmet, but
oh wow,
it's very strange when you put it on because it sort of removes all sense of kind of humanity. You look like a little sort of baby stormtrooper or something. Anyway, it's fun.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
you could be a special ops guy, or you could be it kind of looks like some of the Icon helmets, but it's really cool.
It's made by a company called Ruroc, which I think are English.
Yeah.
But they mostly make snowboarding and stuff. So it's not up to DOT or CE spec for motorcycling, but bit of fun.
I like it.
Yeah.
So your background takes you a lot of places, and we talked about that last time. Your pedigree, you've designed for everyone and sort of every space that needs design, as well as a motorcycle space, which is become your passion. You talked to us a little bit about how you made the decision to jump in to the motorcycle side full force. But one of the things, I'm trying to do with this podcast is to address the why of the whole bike world. Why is it so compelling? Like you and I talked about last time, people have this idea it's just one thing, it's leather and chains and beer brawls and all that. But as we talked about, I mean, there are tech executives, there are art aficionados, all sorts of people in the bike world, especially what you and I know as the art bike world or custom world. And so, it strikes me it's important to just continue to remind people why bikes are so compelling. And I read, or perhaps wrote this quote some time ago, and I think it's great to give the ethos of what we're talking about. In that split second of throttle twist, you are determining your life, its pulse, its tone, its speed, its direction. You lean into that curve, the canyon ride, and you are literally creating through that process, journeying. And for those of us who know bikes, that's really as full as life can get, right? To be doing that, conscious of the work of art beneath you, this fascinating machine amidst the promise and the danger, the hope and the heroism, flying across the earth. That's like a wow moment, right? Perhaps not. That's perhaps not 17th century English lit. It's not Milton or John Donne, but or even C.S. Lewis, but maybe it captures a little bit of the essence of why we're so enthralled with these machines.
Well, I'm sure if John Donne had had a motorcycle, he may have written something similar.
Right.
No, I agree. I mean, it's very compelling. I mean, I get your point. I mean, the motorcycle industry is certainly, I think, more diverse than people would imagine, but there's definitely room for improvement. And I think that's one of the challenges with this. Well, it's an exciting challenge with this new electric technology. Is there's a real opportunity to bring new audiences in. I think Paul actually touched on it. The industry is sort of aging out as it stands. I think, what was it? The average age of motorcyclists used to be like 35, and now it's like 55 or 45 or something. So they're not, for whatever reason, they're not attracting a newer, younger generation. Certainly, women are poorly represented. Not for want of trying by female riders, but just. And then I think what's interesting is you sort of alluded to it. The motorcycle industry does have like an image problem, because actually most people who don't know about it think it is, these big burly guys in sort of leather waistcoats and fighting and drinking and and all that kind of stuff. And and there is a bit of a to go back to a theme that I think we touched on last time, but for me it never really made sense to, when I was designing the XP, to mimic a gasoline bike with an electric drivetrain, because I think design wise it's a bit redundant, but from an image perspective I think it's problematic, because actually, to the uninitiated, you look at particular brands that have particular values, and they are pretty much the antithesis of everything this new audience you're trying to attract believes.
Right.
And yeah, sure, it does come from a position of ignorance to a certain extent on their behalf, but that's perception is kind of reality, unfortunately. And so, I mean, again, I think that's another reason to like de-link. Let's not bring all that slightly problematic heritage with us. We've got an opportunity to discard the things that we need to discard, and maybe redress some of that balance, which will be great. And then to your quote, I mean, for me, and again, I think looking outside in, and again, you only notice the really loud and noisy motorcycles, but everyone, I think, believes that motorcycling is very kind of loud and raucous. And for me, that's never been the attraction.
Yeah.
To be honest, when I'm motorcycling, sure, the bike might be making a lot of noise. I often wear earplugs because I just like the kind of, but for me, it's very much, and I don't think I'm alone in this, it's very much like the eye of the storm. It's like, it's very quiet in the center.
It's the solitude.
It's very calm, very quiet. And you alluded to flying. It always reminded me of, I remember kind of having dreams when I was a kid. I'd sort of stand on the top of my stairs in my pajamas, and I'd sort of
Right.
leap into the void, and then I'd be sort of
Right.
floating, and I could fly around the house. And I mean, that's what motorcycling's like. I mean, because a motorcycle is basically you plus like maybe a foot on either end,
Yeah.
you know, and you sort of stand, and then all you do is sort of lead forward through the waves.
Right.
I mean, you're not inside of something. You're very much, you know, it's wrapped around you and you're wrapped around it. It's very sort of symbiotic.
I think you just
Um,
stumbled onto your next design idea, the Peter Pan. Hugo Eccles, the Peter Pan.
well, I mean, I think there's some really amazing, you know, if you look at
Yeah.
the sort of concepts by Luigi Colani, like back in the, I think 70s and 80s, where, you know, they were starting to integrate kind of body panels
Right.
into the leathers or the clothing,
Right.
the apparel, that then
Yeah.
when you kind of, I mean, it was more like, I think it was a land speed bike, but you know, it was like when you sort of locked into it, it was almost like the reverse of like a beetle sort of opening its wings. Like you sort of get on it and the whole thing kind of goes clunk and shut
Yeah.
into this beautiful kind of shape.
Cool.
But I think there's, you know, there's going to be a lot of sort of that's really interesting. And so, yeah.
So
Sorry,
I
that was a
want to
long
talk.
answer to a short question.
No, no, I want it's good context. I want to go deeper today to the EV side of things. I know you're
Mm,
doing a lot of consulting and design work in that realm.
mm,
Of course, you already referenced the XP, which I
yeah.
just think so. The XP, in terms of what you're saying, I think is emblematic of the task to expand the market, but also so to keep the prevailing ethos that runs just throughout humanity, let alone bikers, whether old bikers or new bikers, is the fun factor, right? I mean, bikes are fun. There's a whole psychology of play, a whole psychology of human fun that has been written about and studied, and essentially that's what bikes are. But I think the EV world has a huge potential to tap into that to bring others to the market. And the XP and some of the other good designs reek of that real fun factor in a forward-looking way that a lot of people outside of the bike world who may give it a look hadn't heretofore. When I
That was
first
kind of the
saw it,
hope.
yeah,
Yeah, that was
and
sort of
your
the hope.
storytelling is really effective. The videos you've done and the marketing, you know, that's going to be part of it going forward too. If we're
Oh,
going to
actually,
sell EV,
yeah. Well, actually, you mentioned the XPs. I haven't kind of put this out on the socials yet, but the XP's going to be in a there's a Paramount Plus movie that's streaming on August 12th. It's called Secret Headquarters. It's a film with Owen Wilson in it. It's a kind of, I think it's a young adult movie. So these kids basically they discover that their dad is not like an accountant or an IT manager. He's actually like a superhero, and they accidentally discover his secret headquarters. And anyway, in the secret headquarters,
an
which
XP
is
riding superhero.
which is a bit like a
That's
cross
awesome.
between sort of Iron Man's garage and the Batcave.
Yeah.
The XP is parked in there. It actually features in the trailer, but I don't know anything beyond that. So
Cool.
that literally might be the kind of blink and miss it moment, or it might.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, you know first. Yeah, but I mean, the XP was designed. You know, I was trying to design an electric motorcycle, you know, with the idea of how would you design a motorcycle if you'd never seen if a gasoline motorcycle had never existed, like really first principles. So it was quite a challenge. It took it was a lot of head scratching and sort of agonizing and tiny existential crises and things like that.
Right.
But I think there's such an opportunity. And then actually what's really interesting about the EV world is they've sort of inadvertently reinvented that entry category that motorcycles used to have. So motorcycles, there used to be these little kind of 50cc sort of pooches and gileras, these little sort of, they were basically mopeds because I think you had to pedal them to start, but they were styled like little kind of naked sports bikes. And you know, I mean, if you ever traveled to Europe, like teenage kids everywhere, they were everywhere, little two-stroke things. You can hear them like in the deep of the night, like all racing each other. And those disappeared. I remember ages ago talking to Miguel Galuzzi at he's at Piaggio, but famously designed the Ducati Monster, amongst others. And he said in its heyday, I think they were selling, I don't know what it was now, like something like 2 million of those little vehicles a year or something, or 200,000 or something. And then it fell to like 20,000 or something. But with e-bikes, they're this sort of, gateway drug into electric vehicles. And I think what's also really nice about EV is, well, it's a challenge, but it's interesting as well. And this came up actually in some consulting I did recently. But gas bikes are very much defined by the powertrain. Like, the V-twin Harley, it's got a certain characteristic. It looks in a certain way, or an L-twin like Ducati, or like a inline four. And that's kind of fixed, and that kind of defines and fixes the character of that motorcycle. But electric's not like that, because I can make the XP behave like a 125, or I can behave like a Goldwing on the highway, and then the moment you take the exit, I can press a button, and then it's like a KTM. It's like a KTM thumper, and I'm like, and it's all kind of regen and throttle, and but you don't want a highly reactive bike on the highway, because the moment you kind of like, the throttle changes, like the whole thing's like bucking backwards and forwards.
Right.
But you do want that, it's nice in the canyons where you can do it all on the throttle. But EV can do that. And, I think I might, again, we talked a couple of weeks ago, so I can't remember which anecdote I shared with you. But, I had a conversation with a client who wanted to buy an XP, and, he's a big guy. He plays ice hockey. He's got like 4 missing teeth, etc., etc. And he was like, look, actually all this power is a little bit, I'm quite new to motorcycling, and I don't really want all the power. It's a little bit intimidating. And the great thing was, you don't need, you've got the best of both worlds. You've got a bike that can and looks like it can, but you can tune it way down until you feel comfortable tuning it up a little bit, and then you feel comfortable. And then so I think so that in a way is really nice as well. That's a really soft introduction into motorcycling as well.
And the power that's there is so smooth and linear. People don't know till they get on it and experience it. So that is one of the things about the EV experience for me, which is so fascinating as a a guy who's always thought of himself as a purist, right? Combustion engine guys, the sounds, the smells, etc. Just the sublime smoothness of the torque and the throttle use is very different, and that can bring people who maybe are a little bit scared of the combustion characteristics. But and the other thing is, and again, I think this is generational. The newer generation, they don't want to be that guy. They don't want to be that guy who pisses their neighbors off at 6 a.m. in the morning with a loud motorcycle, etc. I read an article. They estimated a loud motorcycle riding through or riding across the center of Paris could be heard by 11,000 people. It's amazing. Yeah, you mentioned that last time. It's fascinating to me.
Which is just, really, you want to go piss off 11,000 people?
Let me ask you this. That brings up an interesting question. So you hear a lot of talk about the safety issue of EV. A lot of purists think, oh, it can't possibly be as safe because of the lack of sound, right? So if you're in traffic, you're going to be heard. If you're in someone's blind spot, you give a little throttle, they're going to hear you. So have you seen any research that bears this out? I know there's competing ideas, but
no, I'm really skeptical of the whole loud pipe saves lives. Most of my evidence is anecdotal, based on myself and other friends. But I've ridden loud bikes for almost 30 years, 25 years. That's never stopped people crashing into me. I've probably had like 10 accidents. Wow. If people aren't looking, they're not going to see. If they're not listening, they're not going to hear. And actually, again, we might have had this conversation, but I was in I think it was like a Prius or something. I jumped in an Uber. Other taxi firms are available, and sort of counted how many screens there were, and there was something like 9.
Right.
Like all pulling your attention from what you should be looking at.
Yeah.
And then you've got the, you've
Yeah.
got the hi-fi blaring and blah blah blah. It's like you're not going to hear, and cars are all soundproofed and stuff as well. You're not going to hear if you're not minded to be aware. And cars very much, and it's part of their sales pitch, right? They lure you into the sense of security and safety,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
but it's misleading, right? I mean, you're not, a lot of people manage to die in cars. They're not quite as safe as they make out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good segue to something I really wanted to talk about today, and that is what the various EV production approaches are focusing on, and the balance between all the gadgetry, the tech, the supposed security features, and so like. So in an EV car or any modern car, whether EV or not, there is so much going on. So apart from the sound, as you said, there can be so many different distractions with screens and dings and this camera, that camera. You wonder where the line tilts from safety to distraction. It makes it unsafe. So a lot of stuff is happening in motorcycle EVs. You have, on one hand, you have companies like Damon who are building in 40 some odd screens to detect oncoming dangers.
Yeah, and they've sensors everywhere. Yeah,
and feedback and sensors and all that. The other end of the spectrum, you have the art bike approach that is just totally focused on silence and simplicity, like the Curtis. Two totally different ethoses and approaches. Where do you think the balance is going to fall? What's your opinion on really the way that's going to unfold?
I mean, I think there are a lot, like you say, there's such a diverse kind of audience for this. I mean, I think someone who's maybe sort of commuting through a city maybe does want to be connected and be interrupted by frequent kind of traffic updates and stuff like that. And then there's the other end of the audience, which is, and I would say maybe I'm more down this end, but I'm just trying to remove any and every distraction between me and the experience.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I can't really think of a company that's really been successful doing this yet, but I think there's a real opportunity with the UX, with the user experience and the interaction, to make sure that, like, with a blend of digital and physical displays, you can push information up when it's important. And I'm not really that interested in, I mean, sort of idle curiosity, but I'm, like the motor temperature and the battery temperature. I want to know when it starts becoming a problem. Sure. But
yeah.
I'm not idly curious while I'm motorcycling. I'm concentrating on the next corner and blah blah blah, and positioning and smoothness, and I'm not thinking, oh, I wonder what the engine temperature is. None of that stuff's important. I mean, even out in the canyons, I don't even need to know the speed I'm doing, to be honest. Sure. I mean, the revs maybe, and again, there's always been this challenge between like digital displays where like you show a number like 50, but you actually have to, it takes a lot of concentration. It takes your eye off the road for that little bit longer because you have to read the number. Whereas dials, you can see it in your periphery. Is it here, or is it full, or
yes,
very often, race cars used to dial the speed and the revs, right? And you go, okay, they go bink, they line up, and you go bam, change gear. Right. And you don't have to change gear on an electric. But some of that stuff, I mean, I think a little bit of feedback, a lot of these motorcycles are very clever. I think a little bit of feedback may be explaining that they're actually being a bit clever, and they kind of just saved you from like losing the back end. Yep. So you might see the ABS spike, and you go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Were it not for all this traction control and ABS and positioning sensors and stuff, in a normal unequipped bike, that back end would have slipped out because that's actually gritty. Yeah. But so yeah,
of course, combustion bikes have that too now.
Yeah, no. I mean, everything has it. I mean, Harleys are. I mean, even traditional Harleys, they're all throttled by wire and stuff. It's all fuel injected. Right. There's not actually cables going there. Yeah. I mean, there's cables, electrical cables, but not metal cables. No, I mean, it's always, I mean, actually, that was the other thing. I mean, that even traditional gas bikes are a conceit, right? You know, they've got a gas tank, but nowadays, you know, everything's fuel injected, so the gas
Yeah.
doesn't have to be there. Usually it's not. It's under your seat, or it could even be in the bottom of the bike. It
Right.
could be in the belly pan. The gas tank is like an airbox. So it's a whole kind of conceit anyway. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so it's a bit like they're not even really designing gas bikes that truthfully, to be honest. So, but yeah, I think there's a real opportunity to just pare everything down and just be very kind of contextual. So I need to know, I would like to know suddenly, you know, I don't know, I come
You have
out
an
of the
issue.
canyon.
Sure.
I come out of the canyons and I go through a village and it's a weekday and school's coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like a warning to flash up and go,
Right.
okay, or we have taken the liberty of controlling your speed. Cut it. Actually, as an aside, years ago I was in Italy and I saw probably the cleverest traffic control system I've seen. It was so
Oh, yeah.
stupidly simple. So in the middle of the town, there's some traffic lights. On either end of this little village, there's a speed sensor. If you're within the speed limit, the lights stay green. If you're over the speed limit, they go red and they hold you there for like really long time, like 5 minutes or something. And you're just like,
You're like you're in
but you
you're
learn,
in
but you
you're
learn,
you're in the
you
penalty
learn really
box.
quickly.
You
You
go
learn
back
really
to the hockey.
quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you tone it down, you go through at a respectful, you know, 20, 30 miles an hour through the village, and then sure, they're like, you know, you're out in the canyons, go kill yourself. That's fine. You know, just don't hit anyone doing it.
Right.
But you know, so I think there's a lot of nuance with it, so that like, you know, you can have this lovely pure, it's I'm not even aware of the machine kind of experience. I'm literally just
Yeah.
flying.
That's the balance. That's the dilemma. How much tech do you put into these
But
things?
you can do that with the tech.
And
The tech can
yeah.
really, I mean, I have to say, I look inside of Teslas and I'm like, I just don't like the giant iMac turned on its side screen, you know, screen the size of a dinner tray.
Yeah.
I just think what a missed opportunity. You know, you could have these. I have a prototype watch. I'm not wearing it, but like where it's got a digital screen with physical hands that go through it,
Yeah.
and it's so kind of best of both worlds, right? I
Right.
can, and also I can then I could hack if I want my speedo to look like an old Smith speedo, fine, or if I want it to be like super modern with like Helvetica on it or super minimal,
Yeah.
you know. And again, yeah, just or maybe, you know, you get a sense of the speed, and then when you're over the speed limit, the whole screen goes red,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, okay, great, I
Yeah.
understand.
Let me ask you this. What is
Yeah.
the one bike you haven't designed, but if you could design any bike, no holds barred, what would Hugo give to the world? Would it be combustion? Would it be EV? And if so, what would it be? What's like your
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be EV. I mean, I think the combustion world is in a really interesting place right now because basically all these companies are making their swan song combustion vehicle. You know what I mean? Like Lotus is making like the last combustion car they'll ever make. You know what I mean? And it's gonna be amazing. It's the swan song, you know, and Lamborghini's just announced that they're not going to be doing any retro stuff, you know, like the Countach. That it's all going to be hybrid or EV going forward. So I don't know. I don't think it would be a gas bike. You know, I mean, I've got asked quite a lot. You know, is electric the future? And you know, we don't really know. I mean, maybe it'll end up being hydrogen or something. You know, there are a number of options. But I think the thing you can say is it's not gasoline. You know what I mean? You can categorically say the future's not gas. That's basically done. It's a matter of when, not if. So I think it would be EV for the time being. I mean, maybe hydrogen would be kind of interesting. I don't know.
right?
I mean, I think the challenges are the same, you know, or the challenges are similar. It's like, how do you create a language that that represents this new kind of future?
Have you seen JT Curtis's 30s era roadster that he designed by hand that runs on natural gas? It's pretty amazing.
No.
Oh, it's
No.
amazing.
I
Go
thought
look
you were
at
going
it.
to mention the Curtis one, which I think is really interesting.
No, this
And
is called,
it's not.
Curtis
Yeah.
one is interesting. This is his car. It was on Lino as well.
Oh, yeah. I
Called
think
the
I saw that.
Magnolia.
Yeah.
It's on my website, wealthcurated.com.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's an amazing build, amazing feat of
Yeah.
engineering, but it runs on natural gas. He took it from New York to LA,
Yeah.
straight shot, and broke the record on a natural gas vehicle. But fascinating. There are other
I'd
options out there.
actually, yeah, actually, now you made me think of. I'd like to design a car, like a little 1 or 2 seater car, but
Yep.
probably electric. I'm reminded of, it wasn't electric, but there's a motorcycle builder, Fred Kruger. I think he's out in, I think it's Germany, but
Okay.
he might be.
It's a safe guess. Good safe guess.
If I got that wrong, Fred, I'm sorry. But he did a really interesting car for a client. I think it was based on a Bentley motor, but he built the chassis and everything. But I mean, and it had this very sort of modern art deco kind of feel to it.
Okay.
I'm quite a fan of art deco. I like art deco.
Yeah,
I mean, I have to
I am
say,
too.
you know, just touching on the Curtis, Art Nouveau, less so. I find Curtis a little Art Nouveau for my taste, but
Okay.
you know, but I think the logic's there. It's interesting. And actually, I think I read an interview with JT that I think Paul Diolines had done, where they've got this sort of interesting outlook where he says, look, we know that the battery pack at the moment is inadequate with the current technology, but since this is a motorcycle for life, we know that at some future point, and not necessarily that far in the future, the chemistry and the capacity will be enough that this will be fine. So I think it's
and
pretty,
they're not
quite interesting.
They didn't design the bike for range as well.
No, well, but you know, the point being is that problem will solve itself.
Yeah.
You know, and because it's like, this is not going to be something that we bring out a different version every 6 months, like, you know, many of the, and so I also think that's going to be quite interesting. You know, again, because EVs kind of can be everything. I kind of hope in a way that it's going to stop this sort of rat race, constant, like, you know, when Yamaha bring out a new R1, almost, it seems like almost every 6 months, like a new one comes out, and you're like, but the last one was great. Well, oh my God, why? You know, it's almost sort of point, not really, because there's been a huge sort of technological advantage. You know, it's the old sort of inbuilt obsolescence, right? You know, but it's a styling thing, isn't it? Like Raymond Loewy, you know, you know, the 1950s cars, like they weren't actually technical innovations. They were just changing the bodywork to make the old one look out of date. And then there's actually, I was reading in a book, there's a Alec Isagonis quote. He designed the original Mini, and he said something like, trends go out of fashion, logic is timeless, which was quite good. I think I've just murdered that quote.
Butchered it. You butchered it.
I did. I think I butchered it. But I was really hoping to come across. Yes. I was really hoping to come across as like clever and knowledgeable, but I'll practice that a bit more. But yeah, so I think it's that. So I think it would be an EV of some sort. Yeah, or maybe a whole new category. But maybe a little car. Because again, you know, you could take a powertrain out of a Livewire or a Zero or an Energica or a Damon, and they're more than capable of propelling a you know, a small 2-seater. I think actually with the XP, we've been working with this Canadian company called Xro, which kind of can boost. Well, the kind of sexy end of it is it can boost the power and the torque, and the kind of realistic end is actually it makes it much more efficient, so you actually get more mileage and range out of it. But you know, they boost it by like 20%. But I looked up what that was equivalent of, and it's like, so then the sort of the race version of the XP, the XR, is going to make the same torque as a Lotus Exige, but it's like 2,000 pounds lighter.
Wow.
You know, it's so you could definitely take that powertrain and just put it in a car.
Yeah.
You know,
what I want to see Hugo design is a compelling EV bike that has all the romance and the lines of an 80s race bike. Can you do that?
Well, we're working on a bike with Livewire at the moment.
Still future
Harley
leaning.
Davidson Livewire.
Okay.
No, yeah. Well, and the Livewire project is sort of along that theme. It's got some similar. We're using a sort of similar device that we used on the XP, which is kind of designed for this sort of parallel reality where motorcycles have always been electric, but taking some of the kind of typologies and the kind of forms from Harley Davidson's history. So
okay.
I'm particularly taken with board trackers. I mean, they're board trackers are a very American
sure
typology.
Yeah.
There weren't really board trackers in Europe. Europe was going a different direction, maybe because of the roads and stuff. So it's a very, it's very iconically American. But like, there's this idea of what if board trackers had remained the template for race motorcycles, but you just developed them for another 120 years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like 1920s board tracker meets 2020s MotoGP.
That could be cool.
I think it could be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
We're working on
awesome.
it.
Yeah.
It's a bit bleeding edge, but we're it's going okay so far.
Again, you heard it here first. Man, we're pumping them out.
I know, right?
Well, look, it's always a thrill to chat with you. Thank you for coming back, and hope we'll do this again as other things arise. And do you have one last thought? Do you have one thing you're working on you're particularly excited about, either a new commission or let me ask you this: do you do strictly commissions? So the stuff you see in your site, which the last question I wanted to ask you today is why Untitled Motorcycles? But so answer that in a second. But is all of your work commission based now when you're not consulting, or are you designing bikes as a build it and they will come sort of ethos as well?
No, usually commissions and partnerships.
Okay.
Although Untitled Motorcycles has two workshops. We're in London and we're in San Francisco. My business partner and co-founder Adam Kay runs the London side, and I run the US side. Actually, Adam did just build an EV that was more of an exploratory kind of build it and they will come project. So that's worth checking out. That's on our feed. But no, for me, usually commissions or partnerships with brands. I would love to. At the moment, I don't really have the bandwidth to. I would love to. I don't really have the bandwidth for it just yet. I mean, COVID. There's a bit of a backlog with COVID. It's some of the small businesses that we relied on didn't survive through COVID, or so it's been a challenge finding replacements for them. But yeah, at the moment, predominantly, I'm doing an Aprilia for an amputee client of mine, which is interesting. It's an automatic motorcycle, but actually, I think realistically, the next one would be electric because he needs all the controls on the right hand side because he's missing his lower left arm and his lower legs. And then we're working with Energica, with Cake, with Livewire, and there's stuff.
Maybe some others.
Stuff in the hopper.
Gotcha. All right.
And then Xro in Canada, we're going to be building a limited series of sort of souped up XPs, which will be called XRs or XROs, I think.
Is there a timeline on that? When people could get their hands on it?
Hopefully by the end of the year.
Okay.
But I mean, we're already almost in Q4,
August.
aren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Or
in Q3. Actually, no, Q3 September, isn't it?
Q3,
we're very close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe by Q4. But follow the socials. And then to answer your earlier question about why Untitled. So we were originally founded in London in 2010. I then came out to San Francisco and founded Untitled Motorcycles in California in 2014. So we've been going 12 years, I think. And the name Untitled was created by my co-founder, Adam, and was an allusion to untitled artworks, essentially.
That was my guess.
Because also
Yeah.
in England, untitled doesn't mean it doesn't mean the same as it does in the US. It doesn't mean unregistered.
Yes.
You know, but
yeah,
it inadvertently gives us
yeah,
a certain cachet.
right. Yep.
And also, yeah, I think it was also, you know, just this idea of sort of tabula rasa and blank
like
slate, and yeah, that's where it came from.
All right. Excellent. Hugo, thank you. As always, we'll do this again, and tell folks how to find your work.
Yeah. So on the web, we're untitledmotorcycles.com. And then we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, on Twitter a bit. I think we're even on TikTok actually, but we haven't really posted that much up there. But Untitled Motorcycles on Instagram. I think it's Untitled Them on Twitter and Facebook.
And
so
if
you
they
do
wanted,
a search, you can
they
find
wanted
us.
to commission you, they can get you through those venues.
Yep, or just email hello@untitledmotorcycles.com. We're very friendly.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. Keep working on the accent.
Thank you.
And
I feel it's getting better. Yeah.
It's getting better. Each week it gets better.
more convincing.
That's right. All right, folks. Well, thank you for joining Full Auto. This is wealthcurated.com, and Mr. Hugo Eccles will do it again. Happy travels. Be safe.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Take care.
All right.